Hello and welcome to our camera surface model project part 4. Today we're going to make the lens and the lens surround on the camera. To do this we're going to need to create a central axis on a model using the construct tools, and we are going to place that in the center of the cylinders that we've already created. I'm also going to introduce you to another new tool today, which is the work plane tool, and we're going to use this to position a sketch in exactly the right position for creating the lens and the lens casing for our camera. Work planes are actually very useful and versatile tools, and I can use them to place a whole range of geometry onto my model. I'm only going to show you a little bit today, but it's worth revisiting work planes repeatedly, and the more you use them the better you will get. And finally, I'm going to introduce you to the revolve tool, which is another way of creating 3D solids from profile sketches. This time, instead of extruding in a straight line, we're going to revolve the sketch around a central axis. Okay, creating a cylindrical object instead of a straight object. So before I can set up the lens and the lens housing, I need to highlight some geometry, and I'm going to use the construct function for this. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set up the axes that I need to work along for the revolve function. I'm then going to click the axis through cylinder or cone tool, and I'm just going to click on the cylinder, the inside cylinder of the lens housing. And you can see as I do that, the axis of that cylinder appears just in the center. I now want to create a plane through the center of this cylinder, but to do that I'm going to need to set up two more work planes first of all, and I'm going to use the tangent plane tool for this. Okay, again that's found in the construct area. This will create a work plane along the tangent of the cylinder that I select. Okay, again I can select it from the construct tool, and I can click on the cylinder. Okay, and I can just move the plane around to where I want it to be. This will give me two work planes that I can now find the midpoint between, and because those two work planes match the tangents of the cylinder, I will be able to find the middle of the cylinder. Okay, and I'm just going to use the mid plane tool to do that. So I click on mid plane, click on the first tangential work plane, and click on the second tangential work plane, and you can see from the preview that's where my plane needs to go. I'm now going to hide the work planes that I no longer need by clicking on the drop down menu under construction, finding the relevant work planes and just clicking them to invisible, in pretty much the same way that I can turn the visual elements of the initial sketches that I've used to create the camera on and off. Now I'm ready to start setting up my revolve profile sketch. So I'm going to create a sketch on the work plane, the mid plane in the cylinder. Okay, and just by selecting the work plane, and I'm just going to very quickly draw onto that side plane there. But to help me do this, I'm going to go to the bottom toolbar, and I'm going to change the viewing options. So instead of being solid color, it's going to be a wireframe. And you can see here I can now see right the way through that cylinder, which is going to make drawing my shape much easier. So using the wireframe as a guide, I can now sketch in the final bit of housing for the lens. Using the line tool, I'm just going to use the wireframe as a guide. I'm going to put the angles in there. Here's a handy little tip. When I get to the top here though, I want to make sure that I'm in line with where I started the sketch. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go hover over that point, and it's actually going to set a construction line for me, so I can take that back and I can make sure that my drawing is as accurate as possible. Okay. Once I've made a solid shape, I can then not cancel the sketch, I can finish the sketch, and I'll be ready to use the revolve tool. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to switch the view back to solid colour. It's just a little bit easier to see what's going on with 3D modelling. And I'm going to go to the top toolbar once I've finished the sketch, and I'm going to click on the revolve tool in object. I can now highlight the shape that I've just drawn. Okay, and the second thing I need to select is the axes that I selected before, and you can see the preview of the shape I've drawn start to appear. If I'm not happy with this, I can go back in and I can edit the sketch, but I am quite happy with it. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make a new a new body, and once it's set up as a new body, I can just click on OK, and that shape is saved. I can now make the central lens shape, pretty much doing the same thing as I did before. So I'm going to, first of all, I'm going to make a sketch on the work plane. And I'm also going to transform the shape back from solid colour to a wireframe model so that I can see what I'm doing. I'm going to use a couple of different tools on this. So the first tool I'm going to use is a 3-point arc tool. As its name suggests, what I can do is I can just very quickly click on the first point of the arc, click on the second point of the arc, and then the third point gives me the shape of the curve. Now I only need half of this. So the second tool I'm going to use is the trim tool, which is represented by the pair of scissors in the top. Okay, and I can use that to get rid of half of the arc. I've also just drawn a line in from the top of the arc down through the middle. Okay, now I should be ready to revolve this, but I've made a little bit of a mistake. I haven't put the bottom of the shape in. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click down on the sketch in the bottom of the screen, and I'm going to right click on it. I'm going to go to edit the sketch profile, and then I can put a line in from the base of the arc to the top. So if you do go wrong with the sketch, you can go back into it and you can edit it. Now all I need to do is change it back to a solid view so I can see what's happening. And I'm going to use the revolve tool one more time to revolve this into a solid lens shape. So once I've used the revolve tool to create a new body, I can now just use the materials tool to give the inside casing a black plastic finish like on my original image, and I'm just going to use a glass finish for the lens. And then finally, just to give it a bit of a more realistic finish, I'm going to change the viewpoint from solid colour with lines to just solid colour. That's going to take the sketch lines out. And I'm also going to change the camera angle to perspective. Yeah, and again, it just gives it a slightly more realistic feel when I'm modelling. Okay. So on to the important points to remember from today's video. The Construct tool can provide you with a range of geometric elements to make modelling easier. These include axes and work planes. They take a huge amount of practice to get right, and you can't really master it in one drawing. But trust me, if you need to place something on a drawing, you can use one of these features to help you. The revolve tool creates a solid by taking a profile sketch and rotating it around an axis. This can be through 360 degrees, or it can be any set of degrees that you like. It is incredibly useful for creating complex cylindrical shapes. Basically, if I can manufacture it on a wood turning lathe or a engineer's lathe, then I can use the revolve tool to make it in Fusion 360. And finally, don't forget that different views and different view settings can be used to help you when it comes to drawing your profile sketches. In particular, the wireframe setting allows me to turn all colour and solid fill off from the drawing, allowing me to look straight through different objects. It can make placing a sketch much easier for me. Thank you very much for watching.